The scanner's red lights flickered across Queen Elena Rodriguez's face as she watched the impossible reading appear on her screen. Her fingers gripped the armrests of her command throne, knuckles white with tension. The massive orbital station hummed around her, its biomechanical systems pulsing like a heartbeat through the walls. 3 years had passed since humanity's desperate alliance with the Zephyrian Empire. 3 years since they had agreed to become willing hosts for alien consciousness transplants in exchange for protection against the galaxy's most feared enemy. Commander Walsh, confirm this scan immediately. Elena commanded, her voice cutting through the bridge's quiet efficiency. The scanner had locked onto a single human signature among the thousands of refugees boarding their station. One human whose biosignature showed something that should have been impossible according to every treaty, every agreement, every promise the Zephyrians had made. Commander Patrick Walsh moved swiftly to the secondary console, his movements precise despite the tremor Elena could detect in his hands. He had been one of the first volunteers for the Consciousness Integration Program, trading his individual human awareness for enhanced reflexes and tactical knowledge. The Zephyrian entity sharing his mind made him an exceptional military commander, but Elena sometimes wondered what remained of the man she had once known. "Reading confirmed, Your Majesty," Walsh reported, his voice carrying the dual tones that marked all integrated humans. "Biosignature shows human neural pathways completely intact. No foreign consciousness detected. No integration markers present." Elena stood from her throne, her royal robes flowing around her like liquid shadow. The ceremonial crown on her head felt heavier than usual as the implications crashed over her. A pure human, an unintegrated human, a human who had somehow survived 3 years of hiding while every other member of their species had willingly submitted to the consciousness merger that kept him alive. The great viewing window before her displayed the refugee transport ship approaching their docking bay. Hundreds of integrated humans were aboard that vessel, fleeing from the Outer Rim territories where the Devourers had finally broken through the Zephyrian defensive lines. Each refugee carried within their mind a Zephyrian consciousness, a partnership that granted them enhanced capabilities while supposedly preserving their human essence. Queen Elena had been among the first to accept integration. The Zephyrian Queen Mother's consciousness now shared space in her mind, granting her wisdom spanning millennia and tactical knowledge that had kept humanity's remaining colonies alive. The price had seemed reasonable at the time: survival in exchange for shared mental space, life in exchange for partnership with an alien mind. But the scanner's readings suggested someone had found another way. "Bring up the individual's profile," Elena ordered, moving closer to the primary display. Her integrated consciousness stirred, the alien Queen Mother's thoughts brushing against her own with curiosity and something that might have been concern. The profile materialized on screen. A young man named Jake Morrison, 24 years old according to his basic identification records. No family listed, no colony of origin specified. His integration date showed as pending, which meant he had somehow avoided the mandatory consciousness merger for 3 full years, while every other human had complied. The Queen Mother's voice whispered in Elena's mind, speaking in the harmonic tones that only she could hear. The situation was unprecedented. Their treaty with the Zephyrian Empire specifically stated that all humans would accept consciousness integration as part of the protection agreement. An unintegrated human represented a violation of galactic law, a breach that could void their alliance and leave humanity defenseless against the Devourers. "Your Majesty," Walsh said, his voice tight with barely controlled emotion. The human part of his consciousness was struggling against the Zephyrian tactical assessment demanding immediate action. "What are your orders regarding the anomaly?" Elena closed her eyes, feeling the weight of leadership pressing down on her. The Queen Mother's consciousness provided strategic options, each path analyzed for optimal outcomes. "Arrest the unintegrated human. Turn him over to Zephyrian authorities for mandatory integration. Maintain the alliance at all costs. Preserve humanity's protection against the Devourers." But Elena's human consciousness rebelled against the cold logic. This Jake Morrison represented something they had all lost: pure human thought, uncompromised human will, the ability to make decisions without alien influence whispering suggestions in the background of every choice. "Continue monitoring," she decided, the words surprising even herself. "Do not alert station security yet. I want to understand how he managed to avoid integration before we take action." The Queen Mother's disapproval rippled through her mind like a cold wind. The alien consciousness had guided humanity's queens for 3 years, providing the wisdom necessary to navigate an increasingly dangerous galaxy. But Elena felt something stirring in her that she had not experienced since her integration. Pure human curiosity, unfiltered human hope. The transport ship docked with a metallic clang that reverberated through the station's hull. Hundreds of refugees would soon be processing through immigration checkpoints, each one carrying their integrated consciousness, each one a testament to humanity's adaptation and survival. But among them walked one person who might hold the key to understanding what they had truly sacrificed in their desperation to live. Elena returned to her throne, watching the scanner maintain its focus on Jake Morrison's unique signature. The red lights continued their steady pulse, marking him as clearly as a beacon in the darkness. Whatever his story, whatever his methods of survival, he represented a possibility she had thought lost forever. The human part of her consciousness, the part that still remembered making decisions without alien consultation, began to form a plan. Jake Morrison stepped off the transport ship into the main processing center, his worn jacket pulled tight around his shoulders. The station's artificial gravity felt different from the ship's systems, requiring a moment of adjustment as he joined the queue of refugees waiting for processing. Around him, hundreds of other humans moved with a slightly mechanical precision that marked the integrated population. He had studied their movements during the 3-day journey from the Outer Rim, noting the subtle differences between pure human behavior and the enhanced coordination of those carrying Zephyrian consciousness. The integrated humans moved with purpose that seemed almost choreographed, their responses to situations carrying an efficiency that pure humans rarely achieved. Jake's identification papers were carefully crafted forgeries, designed to pass casual inspection while avoiding the deeper scans that would reveal his unintegrated status. For 3 years, he had moved through the shadows of human society, trading favors and information while staying ahead of mandatory integration sweeps. The Outer Rim territories had provided plenty of hiding places for someone willing to live rough and keep moving. But the Devourer breakthrough had changed everything. The outer colonies were falling one by one, their integrated populations evacuated to core human territories under Zephyrian protection. Jake's options for remaining hidden were disappearing as rapidly as the frontier settlements where he had made his home. The processing line moved forward with mechanical efficiency. Each refugee stepped up to a scanning station where their integration status was verified, their Zephyrian consciousness identified, and their processing completed in under 30 seconds. Jake watched the routine, timing the scanners and noting the guard positions. "Next," called the processing technician, an integrated human, whose movements carried the precise efficiency Jake had learned to recognize. Jake stepped forward, placing his identification on the scanner, and trying to project the calm confidence of just another refugee seeking shelter. The scanner hummed to life, its lights playing across his body in patterns designed to read biosignatures and consciousness markers. Jake controlled his breathing, maintaining the relaxed pose he had practiced thousands of times while knowing that discovery meant imprisonment, forced integration, and the loss of the pure human consciousness he had fought so hard to preserve. The scanner's lights flickered, running through their standard sequence. Jake could see the technician's screen from his position, watching as his forged identification appeared alongside fabricated integration markers that should convince anyone conducting a routine scan. The seconds stretched like hours as the machine completed its analysis. Behind him, the queue of refugees waited patiently, their integrated minds accepting the delay with inhuman calm. None of them showed the nervous energy that pure humans would display in such circumstances. None of them fidgeted or looked around with the constant alertness that had kept Jake alive for 3 years. The scanner completed its cycle with a soft chime. Jake held his breath as the technician reviewed the results, preparing to run if the situation deteriorated. His escape routes were planned, memorized during the long hours of the journey when other passengers slept with the deep rest that integrated consciousness provided. "Processing complete," the technician announced, handing back Jake's identification. "Proceed to station assignment desk for quarters allocation." Jake took his papers and moved forward, joining another queue while his heart hammered against his ribs. The forged integration markers had passed inspection, buying him time to locate whatever resources this station might offer. But he knew that deeper scans would eventually reveal his true nature. And when that happened, his 3-year run would be over. The assignment desk processed his request for temporary quarters with the same mechanical efficiency he had observed throughout the station. Jake accepted his room assignment and basic supply allocation, maintaining his cover while studying the station's layout and security measures. The facility was massive, housing thousands of integrated humans under the protection of Zephyrian military forces. His assigned quarters were small but private, a luxury he had rarely enjoyed during his years of hiding. Jake secured the door behind him and activated the room's basic privacy screen before allowing himself to relax for the first time since boarding the transport ship. For the moment, he was safe, but safety was always temporary for someone living outside the integration system. Jake opened his travel bag and removed a small device that looked like a standard personal communicator but had been modified with components salvaged from dozens of sources. The scanner fed him information about the station's internal systems, revealing the locations of security checkpoints, monitoring systems in the areas where deeper bioscans might be conducted. He had perhaps 6 hours before station security conducted their routine deep scans of all new arrivals. 6 hours to find a way off this station and back into the shadows where pure human consciousness could survive. The galaxy was growing smaller every day as the Zephyrian integration program expanded, and the Devourer threat pushed more refugees into protected space. But Jake Morrison had not survived 3 years of hiding by accepting impossible situations. Somewhere on this station there would be an opportunity, a way to slip past their security and continue his solitary journey through a universe where being purely human had become the greatest crime of all. The device in his hands chimed softly, displaying a schematic of the station's power grid and the locations where a clever person might access systems without triggering security alerts. Jake studied the information, planning his next move, while the clock counted down toward discovery. Queen Elena paced the length of her private chambers, the Queen Mother's consciousness offering strategic assessments that she was finding increasingly difficult to accept. The alien entity sharing her mind had guided humanity through 3 years of successful integration, but now its advice felt like chains rather than wisdom. Jake Morrison had been on the station for 6 hours, and the deep security scan scheduled for the next shift would inevitably expose his unintegrated status. The Queen Mother's thoughts pressed against Elena's awareness, advocating for immediate arrest and forced integration. The violation of their treaty with the Zephyrian Empire could not be allowed to continue. The protection of humanity's remaining population required absolute compliance with galactic integration laws. The logic was flawless, the strategic necessity undeniable. But Elena's human consciousness rebelled against the cold calculation. This man represented something precious that she had thought lost forever. The ability to think, to choose, to exist without alien influence, shaping every decision. 3 years of integration had brought humanity safety and enhanced capabilities, but at a cost she was only beginning to understand. Your Majesty, Commander Walsh's voice came through the communication system, carrying the dual tones of integrated consciousness. Deep security scans will commence in 30 minutes. Request permission to begin preparation protocols. Elena stood before the great window of her chambers, looking out at the stars that had once promised humanity unlimited expansion and freedom. Now those same stars held threats that required alien partnership for survival. The Devourers had changed everything, forcing impossible choices and desperate alliances. "Delay the security scans," she commanded, surprising herself with the words. "Conduct maintenance on the deep scan systems. I want at least a 6-hour delay." The pause before Walsh's response carried volumes of meaning. His integrated consciousness was analyzing her order, finding it tactically questionable and strategically risky. But military discipline demanded compliance with royal commands, even when those commands originated from purely human reasoning. "Acknowledged, Your Majesty. Maintenance protocols will be implemented immediately." Elena closed her eyes, feeling the Queen Mother's disapproval like ice water in her veins. The alien consciousness had accepted their partnership based on mutual benefit and logical cooperation. Elena's recent decisions were straying from optimal tactical assessment, introducing elements of pure human motivation that the Queen Mother found difficult to understand. But Elena was beginning to realize that understanding worked both ways. The Queen Mother's consciousness was ancient and wise, carrying knowledge of galactic politics and strategic necessities that had kept humanity alive. But the alien entity had never experienced pure human hope, never felt the desperate belief that impossible situations could be overcome through determination and ingenuity. Elena moved to her private terminal, accessing reconnaissance data that only the Queen's clearance could unlock. Jake Morrison's movements on the station were being tracked through routine security monitoring, showing a pattern that suggested someone familiar with avoiding surveillance. He had spent time in maintenance areas, accessed public terminals in ways that avoided logging systems, and moved through the station with the careful precision of someone accustomed to staying invisible. The data painted a picture of remarkable survival skills and adaptation. For 3 years, this man had lived outside the integration system. While every other human had accepted consciousness merger, he had found ways to survive that no one else had discovered, maintained his pure human awareness while the rest of their species had traded individual thought for collective security. Elena's decision crystallized with sudden clarity that surprised the Queen Mother's consciousness. She would meet Jake Morrison. She would understand how he had maintained his independence, and she would discover whether the path humanity had chosen was the only one available to their species. "Computer, locate Jake Morrison's current position," she commanded. Using royal override codes that bypassed standard security protocols, the system responded immediately, showing his location in a maintenance area near the station's power distribution center. He was moving carefully, avoiding main corridors and security checkpoints with skill that spoke of extensive experience. Elena donned a simple maintenance uniform, the kind worn by integrated technicians throughout the station. The disguise would allow her to move through service areas without attracting attention, at least until someone conducted a detailed identification scan. She hoped that Jake Morrison would prove as resourceful as his survival record suggested. The Queen Mother's thoughts carried warnings about personal risk, protocol violations, and the dangers of direct contact with an unintegrated human. Elena acknowledged the concerns while continuing her preparations. For 3 years, she had made every decision in consultation with alien wisdom. Tonight, she would act on purely human motivation and accept the consequences. Elena sealed her chambers behind her and activated the privacy protocols that would prevent anyone from determining her absence for several hours. The maintenance corridors beckoned, offering a path toward answers that might change everything she understood about humanity's current situation. The service tunnels beneath the station buzzed with the activity of automated systems and integrated maintenance crews. Elena moved through them with purpose, following the tracking data that showed Jake Morrison's careful progress through areas designed for technical personnel. Her disguise held up under casual observation, but she knew that any detailed security scan would immediately identify her as someone moving outside normal protocols. The Queen Mother's consciousness provided tactical assessments of corridor layouts and security positions, information that Elena found useful despite her growing independence from alien guidance. She was learning to separate the entity's valuable knowledge from its strategic imperatives, using the wisdom while maintaining her own decision-making authority. Jake Morrison's signal led her deeper into the maintenance areas, towards sections of the station that housed critical systems and emergency resources. His destination suggested someone with technical knowledge and specific objectives, not a refugee randomly exploring unfamiliar territory. Elena's respect for his capabilities grew as she followed his trail. She found him in a power distribution chamber, working with tools clearly not issued to refugees. Jake Morrison looked younger than his profile suggested, but his movements carried the confidence of someone accustomed to dangerous technical work. He was modifying some kind of scanning device, apparently trying to map the station's internal systems without triggering security alerts. Elena stepped into the chamber, removing her maintenance helmet to reveal her identity. Jake Morrison spun toward her with reflexes that would have impressed even integrated humans, his hand moving to what was probably a concealed weapon before he recognized her face. "Your Majesty," Jake said, his voice carrying pure human uncertainty without the dual tones of integration. The sound hit Elena like a physical force, reminding her of what human speech had sounded like before alien consciousness began sharing their minds. "This is unexpected." Elena studied his face, seeing intelligence and wariness, but also something else. Hope, perhaps. or at least curiosity about why the Queen of Integrated Humanity had appeared in a maintenance chamber without guards or ceremony. His eyes held the alertness of pure human awareness, the constant vigilance necessary for someone living outside the protection of alien partnership. "Jake Morrison," she said. "We need to talk." Jake Morrison evaluated the situation with rapid analysis that owed nothing to alien enhancement. Queen Elena Rodriguez stood before him without guards, disguised as station maintenance personnel, having somehow tracked his location through security systems that should have been impenetrable. Her presence suggested either a trap that exceeded anything he had previously encountered, or an opportunity he had never dared to imagine. "I assume you know about my integration status," Jake said, keeping his hands visible while maintaining access to his emergency escape routes. The chamber offered 3 different exits, though he suspected that Royal Security Forces were positioned to prevent his use of any of them. Or rather, my lack of integration status. Elena nodded, stepping closer but maintaining a respectful distance that suggested negotiation rather than capture. Her movements carried the enhanced coordination of integrated consciousness, but Jake detected something else in her behavior, an uncertainty that seemed purely human, as if she were acting without the guidance of her alien partner. 3 years, Elena said, her voice carrying wonder rather than accusation. 3 years of avoiding integration while every other human accepted consciousness merger. How did you manage it? Jake studied her expression, looking for signs of deception or manipulation. The Queen's question suggested genuine curiosity rather than interrogation tactics. Against his better judgment, he found himself considering honesty rather than the carefully prepared lies that had kept him alive. "I never believed the integration was truly voluntary," Jake answered, testing her reaction. "Zephyrians presented it as a choice, but the alternative was death by Devourer attack. That's not really a choice at all." Elena's eyes flickered with something that might have been recognition. The Queen Mother's consciousness was probably providing analysis and recommendations, but Elena herself seemed to be evaluating his words through purely human reasoning. "The protection was real," Elena said. "Integration provided enhanced capabilities and tactical knowledge that kept our colonies alive. The partnership with Zephyrian consciousness gave us advantages we couldn't achieve alone." "At what cost?" Jake asked, emboldened by her apparent willingness to discuss rather than simply arrest him. "How much of your own thoughts are still your own? How many decisions do you make without alien consultation?" The question hit harder than he had expected. Elena's expression shifted, revealing internal struggle that suggested his words had touched on something she had been questioning herself. The Queen of Humanity was wrestling with doubts about the path her species had chosen. "The Queen Mother provides wisdom and strategic knowledge," Elena said, but her voice lacked conviction. "The partnership preserves human consciousness while adding capabilities necessary for survival." Jake pulled out his modified scanner, showing her the data he had been collecting. "I've been studying integrated humans for 3 years. The consciousness merger isn't additive, it's replacement. Gradual, subtle, but replacement nonetheless. The alien consciousness becomes dominant, while human awareness fades into subsidiary status." Elena stared at the scanner's display, seeing analysis that confirmed what she had begun to suspect. The integration process was not the equal partnership the Zephyrians had claimed. Human consciousness was being slowly absorbed, replaced by alien thought patterns that prioritized galactic stability over individual human values. "You're suggesting that integration is a form of conquest," Elena said, the words carrying implications that would reshape everything she understood about humanity's current situation, that the Zephyrians are eliminating human consciousness while appearing to preserve it. Jake nodded grimly. "I believe the entire integration program is designed to convert humans into Zephyrian vessels while maintaining the illusion of partnership. The process is gradual enough that most people don't realize what they're losing until it's too late." Elena felt the Queen Mother's consciousness stir in response to the accusation, offering reassurances and strategic justifications for the integration process. But for the first time in 3 years, Elena found herself questioning the alien entity's motivations, rather than accepting its guidance as beneficial wisdom. "If you're correct," Elena said, "then humanity has traded its essential nature for survival. We've become something other than human while believing we were preserving our species. The question," Jake said, "is whether there's still time to find another path." or whether the integration process has progressed too far to be reversed. Elena considered the implications, while the Queen Mother's thoughts pressed against her awareness with increasing urgency. The alien consciousness recognized the threat that Jake Morrison represented, not to physical safety but to the entire structure of human Zephyrian cooperation. His existence proved that alternatives to integration were possible, that humans could survive without surrendering their individual consciousness. "What do you propose?" Elena asked, making a decision that surprised even her. "Assuming you're correct about the integration process, what alternatives exist for humanity?" Jake's expression shifted from wariness to cautious hope. "I've spent 3 years developing techniques for resisting Zephyrian consciousness influence, methods for maintaining pure human thought while appearing to accept integration. If those techniques could be taught to others—" "You're talking about resistance," Elena said, understanding the full scope of what he was suggesting. "Not just personal survival, but organized opposition to the integration program." "I'm talking about preserving human consciousness," Jake corrected. "Finding ways to coexist with the Zephyrians without surrendering our essential nature. There might be alternatives to integration that provide protection without requiring consciousness merger." Elena felt the Queen Mother's alarm ripple through their shared mental space. The alien entity recognized that continued conversation with Jake Morrison posed fundamental threats to the integration program and the stability it had brought to human territories. Through their connection, Elena could sense Zephyrian security forces being alerted to potential violations of integration protocols. "They know," Elena said urgently. "The Zephyrians are aware of our conversation. Security forces are being mobilized." Jake's survival instincts activated immediately, his body shifting into the alert posture of someone preparing for rapid escape. But instead of running, he made a decision that would change both their fates forever. "Come with me," Jake said, extending his hand toward the Queen of integrated humanity. "Let me show you what pure human consciousness can accomplish when it's truly free to choose." Elena stared at his offered hand, understanding that acceptance would mean abandoning her throne, her responsibilities, and the alien partnership that had defined her existence for 3 years. The Queen Mother's consciousness raged against such folly, providing tactical assessments that showed the impossibility of successful resistance against Zephyrian power. But Elena's human awareness, the part of her that remembered making decisions without alien consultation, reached out and took Jake Morrison's hand. The escape began with controlled explosions that disabled key security systems without endangering station personnel. Jake had spent hours preparing contingencies that would create confusion without causing casualties, understanding that successful resistance required moral authority as well as tactical effectiveness. Elena followed him through maintenance corridors that became a maze of diversions and misdirection designed to confuse pursuit. "How long have you been planning this?" Elena asked as they navigated a service tunnel that Jake had apparently prepared with emergency supplies and escape equipment. Her royal training had included tactical scenarios, but nothing approaching the comprehensive preparation Jake demonstrated. "I've been planning escape routes since the moment I boarded the transport ship," Jake answered, leading her through a section of the station she had never seen despite 3 years of residence. "But I never expected to be escaping with the Queen of Humanity herself." Behind them, security alarms echoed through the station as integrated personnel responded to the breach with mechanical efficiency. Elena could feel the Queen Mother's consciousness struggling against her human decision-making, trying to reassert control and return her to the safety of Zephyrian protection. The internal battle was becoming as challenging as their external flight. "The integration process," Elena said as they climbed through a maintenance shaft. "How much time do we have before it becomes irreversible?" Jake paused in his climbing, looking down at her with expression that mixed hope with grim realism. "For most people, the process becomes irreversible after 5 years. The human consciousness gets so thoroughly integrated with alien thought patterns that separation becomes impossible without destroying both entities." Elena calculated rapidly, understanding that her own integration was approaching the critical threshold. 3 years of partnership with the Queen Mother had created deeper connections than she had realized. Separation would require techniques and resources that might not exist outside Jake's experimental methods. They emerged into a docking bay that Jake had apparently identified as offering the best escape possibilities. A small maintenance vessel waited with systems apparently pre-configured for rapid departure. Elena realized that Jake Morrison's survival skills extended far beyond simple hiding and evasion. "You've been planning to leave the station," Elena observed as Jake began powering up the vessel's systems. "Were you always intending to continue running, or do you have a specific destination in mind?" Jake's hands moved across the controls with confidence born of extensive preparation. "There are others," he said, his voice carrying the first hope Elena had heard since their conversation began. "Other humans who found ways to resist integration. They're scattered across the outer territories, hidden in places the Zephyrians consider to be of no strategic importance." "A resistance movement," Elena said, understanding beginning to form. "You're not just a single survivor. You're part of an organized effort to preserve human consciousness. We call ourselves the Remnant," Jake explained as the vessel's engines came online. "Humans who've maintained their essential nature while developing techniques for coexistence that don't require consciousness surrender. We've been working for 3 years to find alternatives to integration." Elena felt something stirring in her that she had not experienced since before her integration began. Pure human determination, unfiltered by alien strategic assessment or tactical calculation. The possibility that alternatives existed, that humanity's current path was not the only option for survival. The Queen Mother's consciousness made one final attempt to reassert control, flooding Elena's awareness with strategic imperatives and warnings about the consequences of abandoning her responsibilities. The alien entity reminded her of the protection she would be abandoning, the enhanced capabilities she would lose, the wisdom that had guided her successful leadership. But Elena's human awareness had tasted freedom again, had remembered what it felt like to make decisions without alien consultation. The choice between safety and independence crystallized with startling clarity. "Take us to the Remnant," Elena commanded, settling into the co-pilot seat as Jake completed their departure preparations. "It's time I learned what humanity can accomplish when it's truly free." The maintenance vessel slipped away from the station with stealth systems that Jake had apparently acquired through 3 years of careful preparation. Elena watched her former home disappear behind them, understanding that she had just made the most important decision of her life. The Queen Mother's consciousness gradually faded into background noise as distance weakened their connection, leaving Elena alone with her own thoughts for the first time in 3 years. The silence in her mind felt both terrifying and exhilarating. After 3 years of constant alien consultation, making decisions with purely human reasoning felt like learning to walk again. But Elena found herself remembering aspects of her personality that had been dormant during the integration period, human traits that had been overshadowed by the Queen Mother's influence. "The journey to Remnant territory will take several days," Jake explained as they reached safe distance from the station. "That will give us time to begin the separation process if you're committed to regaining full human consciousness." Elena nodded, understanding that the path ahead would require courage she had not needed to summon since her original acceptance of integration. But the possibility of true freedom, of human consciousness uncompromised by alien partnership, justified whatever difficulties lay ahead. For the first time in 3 years, Elena Rodriguez was making decisions without alien guidance, and the experience felt like coming home to a part of herself she had thought lost forever. The separation process began within hours of their departure from the station, as the distance from Zephyrian space weakened the Queen Mother's connection to Elena's consciousness. Jake Morrison had developed techniques during 3 years of studying integration effects, methods for safely extracting human awareness from alien partnership, without causing psychological damage to either entity involved. "The Queen Mother's consciousness is designed to integrate gradually," Jake explained as he set up equipment that looked more medical than technological. "But separation can be accelerated using biofeedback techniques that encourage the alien entity to withdraw voluntarily, rather than being forcibly expelled." Elena submitted to the process with determination that surprised even herself. The medical scanners showed the intricate connections between her consciousness and the alien entity that had guided her for 3 years. The Queen Mother's thoughts were woven throughout her decision-making processes, strategic assessments embedded in her memory structures, tactical knowledge integrated with her leadership capabilities. "This will be disorienting," Jake warned as he activated the separation equipment. "You've been making decisions with alien consultation for 3 years. Pure human reasoning will feel different, perhaps inadequate at first." The process began with subtle shifts in Elena's awareness, as if layers of thought that had become familiar were gradually peeling away. The Queen Mother's strategic assessments faded first, leaving Elena's human judgment to evaluate situations without the benefit of alien tactical knowledge. Decision-making became more uncertain, more emotionally influenced, more recognizably human. "I can feel it working," Elena said, her voice carrying wonder as purely human thoughts began asserting themselves. "The constant background analysis is disappearing. My mind feels quieter, but also more mine than it has in years." Jake monitored the separation carefully, adjusting the biofeedback to ensure that Elena's consciousness remained stable as the alien entity gradually withdrew. The Queen Mother's presence had been so thoroughly integrated that removal required delicate precision to prevent psychological trauma. Hours passed as the separation deepened. Elena experienced memories from her 3 years of integration without the Queen Mother's interpretive framework, seeing her own decisions from a purely human perspective for the first time since accepting alien partnership. The experience was both liberating and disturbing, revealing how thoroughly her thought processes had been influenced by alien priorities. "The tactical knowledge is disappearing," Elena observed as the separation neared completion. "All those strategic assessments and galactic political analyses are fading away. I'm losing capabilities that made me an effective leader. But you're regaining something more important," Jake replied, checking the medical readouts that showed Elena's consciousness stabilizing in purely human patterns. "The ability to make decisions based on human values rather than alien strategic imperatives. That's what the Remnant considers most valuable." The final phase of separation brought Elena's consciousness fully back to human parameters. The silence in her mind was complete, no longer interrupted by alien thoughts or strategic assessments. For the first time in 3 years, Elena Rodriguez was thinking with purely human awareness, making judgments influenced only by human experience and values. "It's done," Jake announced, deactivating the separation equipment. "You're completely human again. No alien consciousness remains in your mental patterns." Elena sat in silence for several minutes, adjusting to the experience of unguided human thought. The loss of alien strategic knowledge felt like blindness after years of enhanced perception, but the freedom to think without consultation was intoxicating. Every decision, every evaluation, every emotional response was purely her own. "The Queen Mother tried to convince me that integration was beneficial," Elena said finally, "but now I can see how thoroughly it was changing my essential nature. I was becoming something other than human while believing I was preserving my humanity." Jake nodded with understanding born of 3 years spent observing integration effects. "That's the most insidious aspect of the process. The changes are gradual enough that most people don't realize what they're losing until it's too late for reversal." Elena stood and moved to the ship's viewing port, looking out at stars that now seemed different somehow. Without alien strategic assessment, the galaxy appeared less threatening, but also less comprehensible. Her human awareness could not evaluate the complex political and military factors that the Queen Mother's consciousness had analyzed constantly. "I feel smaller," Elena admitted, "less capable of understanding the forces that threaten humanity, but also more myself than I've been in years." "That's the trade-off," Jake said. "Integration provides capabilities beyond normal human limits, but at the cost of fundamental human nature. The Remnant believes that preserving our essential characteristics is more important than enhanced abilities." Elena turned from the viewing port, her expression carrying determination that was purely human in its emotional intensity. "Then it's time I met these others who've made the same choice. I want to understand what alternatives exist for humanity beyond surrender to alien consciousness." Jake activated the ship's navigation systems, setting course for coordinates that he had apparently kept memorized rather than stored in any retrievable format. The security precautions spoke of an organization that had learned to survive through careful preparation and absolute discretion. "The Remnant community we're approaching has been developing alternatives to integration for 3 years, Jake explained as their ship entered hyperspace. "They've discovered techniques for enhanced capability that don't require consciousness merger. Pure human potential that most of our species never realized existed." Elena felt anticipation building within her consciousness, unfiltered by alien strategic assessment of the situation's implications. For the first time in 3 years, her excitement about the future was completely her own, undiluted by alien calculations about optimal outcomes. The journey toward whatever remained of free humanity had begun. The remnant outpost appeared as little more than asteroids and debris when their ship dropped out of hyperspace, but Jake's knowing smile suggested that appearances were deceptive. Elena watched through the viewing ports as their vessel approached what looked like empty space, until scanner readings began revealing the truth hidden within the cosmic camouflage. Stealth technology, Jake explained as massive structures became visible through specialized sensors. Not alien stealth, but pure human engineering pushed beyond normal limits. The Remnant has discovered that human innovation can achieve remarkable results when it's not constrained by alien partnership. The hidden station was enormous, carved from asteroids and connected by transparent tunnels that would be invisible to most scanning systems. Thousands of people moved through the structure with purpose that reminded Elena of her own station, but their movements carried the unpredictable energy of pure human consciousness, rather than the mechanical precision of integration. How many? Elena asked, awed by the scope of what she was seeing. How many humans have found their way here? This is just one of several remnant communities, Jake replied as they approached a docking bay that materialized from what had appeared to be solid rock. We estimate that perhaps 50,000 humans galaxy-wide have managed to avoid integration or successfully separate from alien consciousness. Elena's human awareness processed the implications without alien strategic analysis interfering with her emotional response. 50,000 pure humans in a galaxy where billions had accepted integration. The Remnant represented a tiny fraction of their species, but their existence proved that alternatives were possible. The docking bay sealed around their ship with technology that seemed both familiar and strange. Elena recognized human engineering principles, but enhanced beyond anything she had seen during her 3 years of integration-assisted leadership. The Remnant had apparently achieved technological advancement through pure human innovation rather than alien knowledge transfer. Jake led Elena through the docking area, where people stopped their activities to stare at the woman who had been queen of integrated humanity until hours before. Their expressions carried curiosity mixed with cautious hope, as if her presence represented possibilities they had barely dared to imagine. "Elena Rodriguez," said a voice behind them, carrying pure human warmth without the dual tones of integration. Elena turned to find a woman approximately her own age, with graying hair and eyes that held the intelligence and determination she remembered from her own pre-integration years. "I'm Dr. Lisa Chen," the woman continued, extending her hand in a gesture of welcome. "Former head of the Colonial Medical Council before the integration mandate. We've been hoping someone like you might eventually find their way to us." Elena accepted the handshake, marveling at the simple human contact without any alien consciousness analyzing the interaction for strategic implications. "Someone like me? A leader who experienced integration and chose freedom over enhanced capability." "Doctor," Chen explained, "your perspective could be invaluable in helping us understand how to reach other integrated humans who might be questioning their situation." Jake had been correct about the Remnant's organization and purpose. These were not random refugees, but scientists, engineers, military personnel, and skilled civilians who had rejected integration and worked together to develop alternatives that preserved human consciousness while providing the capabilities necessary for survival. "Jake told me you found ways to enhance human potential without consciousness merger," Elena said as Dr. Chen led them deeper into the station. "I admit I'm skeptical that pure human capability can match what integration provides." Dr. Chen smiled with the confidence of someone who had spent 3 years proving such skepticism wrong. "Let me show you what humanity can accomplish when it's truly free to innovate, without alien consultation limiting our thinking." The tour that followed challenged every assumption Elena had developed about human limitations. The Remnant had created technology that rivaled Zephyrian achievements, using pure human engineering and scientific method. Their weapons systems, defensive capabilities, and life support technologies were all based on principles that humanity had discovered independently. "The key insight," Dr. Chen explained as they observed a research facility where humans worked without any alien assistance, was that integration doesn't actually enhance human capability, It replaces human thinking with alien methods that are more efficient but less creative. Pure human consciousness, when fully unleashed, can achieve things that alien partnership cannot. Elena watched remnant scientists conducting experiments with obvious enthusiasm and intellectual freedom. Their research methods showed none of the methodical precision that integration provided, but their results demonstrated innovation and breakthrough thinking that she recognized as uniquely human characteristic. You're suggesting that integration actually limits human potential rather than enhancing it, Elena said, understanding beginning to form as she observed the evidence around her. Integration provides immediate access to alien knowledge and capabilities, Dr. Chen confirmed. But it also constrains human thinking to patterns that aliens consider optimal. Pure human consciousness is messier, less predictable, but ultimately more capable of genuine innovation and creative problem-solving. Elena spent hours touring the remnant facility, meeting humans who had maintained their essential nature while developing capabilities that nobody in integrated space had believed possible. Their achievements challenged the fundamental assumptions about human dependence on alien partnership that had justified the integration program. The question, Elena said as the tour concluded, is whether this knowledge can be used to help integrated humans regain their freedom, or whether the separation process is too difficult for widespread application. Dr. Chen's expression grew serious, acknowledging the challenge that Elena had identified. Separation is possible, as you've experienced yourself, but it requires voluntary participation from the integrated individual. The alien consciousness cannot be forcibly removed without causing severe psychological damage. Elena nodded, understanding the implications. The remnant might have proven that alternatives to integration existed, but reaching integrated humans with that message would require overcoming the alien consciousness that actively opposed such separation. However, Dr. Chen continued, your experience as an integrated leader who chose freedom provides something we've never had before: credibility with integrated populations who might be questioning their situation. Elena felt purely human determination crystallizing as she understood what the remnant was asking of her. They wanted her to return to integrated space, not as a refugee or escapee, but as a messenger carrying proof that freedom was possible for those with the courage to reclaim their human consciousness. The mission would be the most dangerous undertaking of her life, requiring her to operate within integrated society while maintaining her newly reclaimed human awareness. But the possibility of offering others the choice she had made justified whatever risks lay ahead. I'll do it, Elena said, the decision emerging from pure human conviction rather than alien strategic assessment. I'll return to integrated space and find ways to share what we've learned here. Chen smiled with satisfaction. That was entirely human in its warmth and hope. Then it's time you learn some techniques that will help you survive among the integrated while maintaining your essential humanity. The preparation for Elena's return mission took several weeks, during which she learned methods for mimicking integration effects while keeping her consciousness completely free of alien influence. The techniques were complex, requiring precise control over biosignatures and behavioral patterns that could fool casual observation while avoiding deep scans that would reveal her true status. The key is understanding how integration actually changes human behavior, explained Marcus Webb, a former Zephyrian liaison officer who had separated from alien consciousness 2 years earlier. Integrated humans show subtle but consistent patterns in their decision-making, response timing, and social interaction. Mimicking those patterns will help you blend into integrated society. Elena practiced the behavioral modifications until they became second nature, learning to project the mechanical precision and strategic thinking that characterized integrated consciousness while maintaining her human awareness beneath the surface. The training was exhausting, requiring her to essentially play a role that had once been her natural state. Remember that the alien consciousness and other integrated humans will be analyzing your behavior constantly, Marcus warned. Any deviation from expected integration patterns could expose you as a separated human. Maintaining the deception will require constant vigilance. Elena also learned counter-surveillance techniques that would help her identify and communicate with other integrated humans who might be questioning their situation. The methods were subtle, designed to test whether the human consciousness remained active within the alien partnership without alerting the possessing entity to the nature of the inquiry. We estimate that approximately 30% of integrated humans retain enough human awareness to potentially achieve separation. Dr. Chen explained during one of their planning sessions. Your mission is to identify those individuals and provide them with information about alternatives to continued integration. The ship Elena would use for her return mission was modified with stealth systems and communication equipment that would allow her to maintain contact with remnant communities while operating in integrated space. The technology was entirely human-developed, providing capabilities that alien consciousness could not detect or counter using standard Zephyrian methods. On her final day at the Remnant Station, Elena met with community leaders who provided her with resources and contacts that might prove helpful during her mission. The network of separated humans was more extensive than she had initially realized, with cells operating throughout integrated space under deep cover. The universe is changing, Dr. Chen said as Elena prepared to depart. The Devourer threat remains real, but solutions based on consciousness surrender may not be the only path to survival. Your mission could determine whether humanity has a future as a free species or continues toward total assimilation. Elena entered her ship feeling the weight of responsibility that was entirely human in its emotional complexity. No alien consciousness provided strategic assessment or tactical guidance as she contemplated the mission ahead. The fear, hope, determination, and uncertainty she experienced were completely her own. Jake Morrison joined her for the departure, having volunteered to act as her contact with remnant communities during the mission. His 3 years of experience operating in integrated space while maintaining human consciousness made him invaluable for the challenges they would face. "Are you ready for this?" Jake asked as their ship cleared the station and prepared to enter hyperspace. Returning to integrated space while maintaining your freedom will be more difficult than any challenge you faced as an integrated queen. Elena activated the ship's navigation systems, setting course for the core human territories, where integrated populations lived under Zephyrian protection. The mission parameters were clear, but success would depend on her ability to maintain human consciousness while appearing to display all the characteristics of alien partnership. "I'm ready," Elena replied, feeling pure human determination that was unfiltered by alien consultation. It's time integrated humans learned that freedom is still possible for those willing to fight for it. The journey back to integrated space began, carrying with it the hope that humanity might yet reclaim its essential nature from the alien consciousness that it seemed like salvation but threatened to become a subtle form of extinction.